Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, as many of you know, I climbed my way up the IT ranks many years ago, from first-line support to applications and IT management. And although I did leave that world behind 3 years ago, I still have IT blood running through these veins. And I know how much a business spends on licenses and everything on a tech estate. But I also know that many do not fully understand everything that they have. And those kind of discovery exercises are often done several years ago by someone who no longer works for the company. But if you do keep your house in order and understand your tech estate, you can invest in value-add technology. The kind of technology and new systems that you think you currently can't afford. And a company called Snow Software believes that that kind of perspective is power, because technology intelligence is changing the way organisations manage all those IT assets. So with Snow, they're daring to go beyond discovery and inventory to understand exactly how their technology is being used. And their website states you're empowered to optimise your budget and maximise your impact, to elevate IT to an agent of change and agility. And ultimately, with the right perspective, anything is possible. So I learned all that after checking out a recent report that they released, and that offered a few revealing insights on its own. So I reached out and offered Alastair Pooley, CIO of Snow Software, onto the podcast to find out a little more. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to Bracknell here in the UK so we can speak with Alastair right now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. Great to be here, Neil. So my name's Hasta Pudi. I'm the CIO of Snow Software, which means I look after our technology estate and everything that we run around the world that helps us deliver services out to our customers. In terms of Snow, what we're really trying to do is help people understand their technology estate. I think one of the big challenges we're really trying to solve is make the things that are hard for you to understand and dissect much more easy to visualize and understand what your usage is and how you can use it more effectively.
Such an important role. As an ex-IT guy, I know that all too well. I can only imagine what so many organisations around the world are going through right now in trying to understand that tech estate, especially when so much more remote working technology has been put in place in a very short space of time. But just to get everyone listening on the same page, can you tell me how Snow is trying to change the way organisations understand and manage that technology consumption?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we started out, Snow's been around sort of over 20 years now. We started out very much in the software asset management space. And that's very much helping people understand their consumption of software licensing, work out where they can save money, work out where they're struggling with compliance and making sure that they're controlling some of the things that cost a lot of organizations a lot of money. Over time, what we've expanded into is to try and tackle the other parts of your technology estate that are difficult for you to manage. When you talk about your sort of IT budget, your people costs, your data center, your big network contracts are relatively easy to understand. But when you talk about your individual laptops and PCs, your hardware that's out there and with your end users, that's a challenge. Your software licenses, these days your SaaS licenses, so are you consuming Salesforce, Adobe, Office 365, are you licensed for the right amount or are you over licensed? And of course your IaaS use, all of that public cloud consumption that's going on, whether that's in AWS, Azure or Google Cloud. All of those things are very challenging for somebody to manage and to get their arms around what's going on. So we're trying to build a technology platform that lets you see all of that, understand your utilization, understand whether you're getting value for money, and help IT teams manage that more effectively.
I was getting flashbacks just listening to you there of my IT past. I know how incredibly complex that world is, especially in large organisations. But one of the reasons that I invited you on the podcast today was after reading your recent survey, which revealed that the competing and sometimes conflicting challenges and priorities of IT leaders from 2020 that are actually shaping IT's agenda for 2021, especially when it comes to managing risk. But can you offer a brief overview of that report?
Yeah. I mean, it's something that we've done quite recently, and it was really interesting, at the back end of 2020 to go out and talk to lots of customers and potential customers and just understand what the real picture is in IT at the moment. And of course, some of the challenges that you start to see a lot of commonalities. Unmanaged technology is a real concern for people. And obviously with the pandemic response, lots of people rushed out technology, often in a hurry, which leaves them exposed to potentially unexpected true-up costs. They could be at risk of not complying with government regulation around privacy, or they're just not meeting some of the contractual commitments they've signed up to. So that's definitely a challenge that we saw coming through. We also found some very interesting feedback around how people were doing on the security front. Most IT leaders felt their organization was managing and monitoring the security of their technology very effectively, but their employees felt less confident. And that was an interesting one, because that may suggest that we think we're doing a better job in IT in securing things than our actual employee base is finding in practice.
And after reading the report, it seems that IT's continuous efforts to reinforce security best practices might finally be paying off, which kind of conflicts with what you just said a little bit. But there is a lower level of awareness for additional issues. So can I ask that you expand on that?
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of what I meant in some ways. I think there is the awareness out there that security is something that everybody has to pay attention to. I mean, there's been an awful lot of media attention on ransomware attacks, and these days, particularly on the SolarWinds breach, which has been extremely big news in the US, as a supply chain attack, where what's actually happened is SolarWinds have been compromised, their software has been amended, and then people who are installing the SolarWinds software expecting it to allow them to monitor their network are instead discovering that it's got a backdoor in it that allows some nefarious third parties access to your network. So I think the basic security awareness of people has gone up, but there are some challenges that can crop up that people aren't quite aware of. And certainly being aware of your technology estate, what you've got rolled out, what software versions are out there and installed is really important. We've actually spoken to customers who are able to use the Snow platform to identify installations of the SolarWinds packages that they weren't aware of. And just being able to quickly go and get that visibility and discover, do I have this product installed somewhere in my estate, is really valuable.
And I think that every business in every corner of the world are all going through exactly the same thing, and they've all changed how they work, or even been forced to change how they work over the last 12 months. And I recently read that Microsoft had said that 2 years worth of digital transformation efforts for most companies went through in just 2 months. So bearing that in mind, were there any stats that stood out for you in this report?
I mean, it's definitely been an incredibly turbulent time of change. And I've heard similar. I was speaking to a CIO of a very large retail company in the US, and they said within 4 weeks they'd made their digital sales target that they planned in 4 years' time. So that kind of pace of change is pretty phenomenal. And it's a testament to some of the technology that's in place that people have just been able to keep up with that kind of pace of growth. I think in terms of surprises for us, it was just the way that people are managing the increased level of risk. Technology leaders think that they've got a good handle on it, but I do wonder whether the reality really matches up with that. I must admit, one of the things that tend to keep me awake at night and keeps me concerned is far more around the security side of things than anything else. Because you just know that you're reliant on every employee in your business making the right decisions whenever something comes up. And you need to have an awful lot of controls and countermeasures in place so that you can react to that if they don't. So that was a bit of a surprise to me, that I think people were as positive as they were.
I'm curious, was there anything that really surprised you in the report?
No, I don't think I had too many surprises. I guess I participate in a lot of round tables and the like with our customer base. I do try and stay up to date with peers. I think one of the things I'm really missing these days is conferences and that chance to go and engage and meet people. So I've tried to do more of the online and sort of virtual events just to stay in touch with what's going on. So I was quite pleased, actually. It kind of mirrored my expectations of what people were finding.
And in addition to the myriad of impacts from a data breach, unmanaged technology can lead to soaring IT expenses, unexpected true-up costs, government fines, contractual breaches, and so much more. That list goes on. And with the uncertain and somewhat predictable nature of the global markets in 2020, I've got to ask, what do you think organisations should consider now that they're managing their technology stack and the data stored on it to appropriately mitigate an increase in these risks? Because like you say, security has got to be that number one concern right now.
Yeah, I think it's certainly risen up the agenda an awful lot. I've talked to quite a few technology companies as well, and the areas that seem to be thriving particularly well, anybody enabling remote work and anybody doing cybersecurity are particularly strong areas of investment at the moment. Underpinning a lot of that, though, is understanding your technology estate and just having that visibility of what's been deployed, what are you using, and having that almost real-time, up-to-date view of what your infrastructure looks like. And that's really challenging for a lot of people to do. Many people have talked about the idea of a live CMDB that lets you understand all of your configuration out there. But of course, nobody's really got that. So how can you get that best visibility of your technology that you can? And it starts this way in a lot of the security models. If you look at NIST or any of the other frameworks, they talk about understanding your assets as the first step in a good cybersecurity plan. And that's very much, I think, where everybody needs to start. Make sure you understand what you're running, where it is, and have that visibility across your estate.
And I'm curious, we are living in a time at the moment where there's many companies are forced to almost do more with less. And when you're talking to organisations and the C-suite, how do they understand the ROI of understanding all their assets and the tech estate and securing of that? Do they get that?
I think so. Yeah, I think the value of the having a good cybersecurity strategy in place and understanding what you've got is definitely there. Yeah. I mean, there's pressure coming from boards, from investors, that you need to make sure that you've got your house in order there. And I think we'll see increased pressure after the SolarWinds incident on lots of companies to have better controls around their third-party sort of suppliers. What software are you installing? What are you rolling out across your estate? Are you aware of all of that and able to keep track of the risks that you might be taking on? But there's also quite a strong ROI case just around managing your costs properly. When you look at most IT budgets and you start factoring in the cost of your cloud services, your SaaS, your software licenses, this is often a really big chunk of the IT budget, but they tend to be lots and lots of small contracts. It's not like your staff bill where you can go and talk to your HR team and just get a spreadsheet and there you are, that's your staff costs. When you start digging into all these applications, all these cloud services, it's a myriad of lots of small invoices. So it's how do you get control of that and then try and manage those costs the best you can. If I talk about the IaaS space particularly, there's usually a lot of wastage in people's cloud accounts. Resources that haven't been switched off, instances that are oversized and cost too much on a per hour basis, but it was easy for somebody to turn it on at a higher level than was needed. And the one that I'm always shocked by are unused resources. So unattached IP addresses, unattached disk drives, which have just been left lying around and are still sitting there months later, just building up costs for you. So if you can go and generate some savings by turning some of this stuff off, identifying this lack of use and recovering all the money to spend on other things, that's a really strong use case for putting some effort into this space.
It really is. And over the years, I've seen just how much money can be saved by performing an exercise like that. And for business leaders that could be listening anywhere in the world, can you maybe bring all that to life by telling them how you're helping your customers keep their house in order and everything that you do with Snow Software?
Yeah, sure. So the idea behind what we're trying to do is put in place a technology asset management platform that helps you manage the things that are really difficult for IT to take control of. So that's your hardware assets, your software assets, your SaaS usage, and your cloud usage. And by taking that data together and giving somebody a consistent view, they can look at what is their inventory, what's the utilization of that inventory, right the way down into who's signing into AWS accounts or who's signing into that SaaS application, so that you understand what's in active use, and could potentially be on somebody's credit card or a corporate credit card and not showing up in the IT budget, and therefore out of sight of the IT department. So if we can collate all of that information and help you understand all of that utilization, then we can help you understand what your risk is, what your costs are, and what your opportunities are to make some savings and better manage that technology estate.
Excellent. Love that. And we are at the beginning of a new year, so I've got to ask, what's next for Snow Software? What's your primary focus going to be this year? I understand you might not be able to share too much, but is there anything you can?
Well, we're definitely focusing on a lot more in the cloud space. That's certainly an area that we see a lot of opportunity to help our customers realize some savings and just bring in some better controls and governance around what they're doing. So that's an area we'll continue to work on. And we're also doing an awful lot of work on the SaaS area, as that's a strong area where, again, we've seen massive amounts of growth. So being able to identify that utilization and track it can be really powerful to our customers.
Fantastic. And for anyone that would like to dive a little bit deeper into this subject, find out a little bit more information, download the report, or even contact a member of your team, what's the best way of doing that?
So best place is going to be to go to our website, www.snowsoftware.com.
And like I said at the very beginning of the podcast, I think that the new data that you revealed, that competing and sometimes conflicting challenges and priorities of IT leaders last year are now shaping IT's agenda for 2021, especially when it comes to managing risk, is incredibly insightful. So I do urge people to go to your website, check out the report and maybe learn a few things. But more than anything, just a big thank you for taking the time to sit down with me today and share aspects of that.
Great to talk to you, Neil. Thanks for your time.
In order to determine how IT leaders are approaching 2021, Snow Software surveyed 1,000 IT decision makers and 3,000 workers in a bid to better understand how organisations around the world are currently using and managing their technology. And yes, while a majority of IT leaders felt their organisations were managing, monitoring or securing their technology resources effectively, employees seem slightly less confident when asked if their organisation took appropriate measures to store and secure sensitive data, monitor and manage software applications and cloud usage, and track and manage work devices. If we've learned anything over the last few years, it's that it's essential for organisations to consider how they are managing their technology stack and all that data stored on it, especially if they're going to appropriately mitigate an increase in risks. So that is the details of that report. Alastair shared so many great insights from that, but I'm curious, we do have people listening in 165 countries. I want to throw this out to you, no matter what industry you're in. Do you feel that your company keeps its house in order and fully understands its tech estate? And my food for thought of the day is, what benefits do you think could be achieved by better understanding that tech estate? It's a big question. Maybe you can go away and chat about it on your next Zoom meeting, a good topic for discussion. But I'd love to hear your thoughts, insights, experiences, the whole shaboodle. And you can do that by emailing me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, LinkedIn, Twitter @Neil C. Hughes, and my website is techblogwriter.com. So I'm going to leave you with a bit of homework there. I hope you do come back to me and I'll return. And if not, don't worry, I'll return tomorrow with another guest. So a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.